Good afternoon, Robert Scribbler. It is September 6th, 2018. Thank you for joining me for another climate change and clean energy video blog. Now for this segment, I am going to talk about a severe flood event that occurred in Kansas over the past few days that was a 1 in 500 year flood event given typical climatological averages, but and that resulted in massive flooding in some Kansas communities, but that hasn't really hit national media, so we haven't heard much about this event, despite the fact that it's a very extreme event. So on September 3rd, overnight rains associated with very severe thunderstorms dumped approximately 8 to 9 inches of rain in just a 2-hour period in Riley County, Kansas, and around the city of Manhattan, Kansas, which resulted in 300 people being displaced from their homes due to flooding and over 152 water rescues. And it's worth noting that city managers are stating that this was one of the most significant events that they have ever experienced, and that areas that were flooded were areas that they had never seen flooded before. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you some of the pictures from the Riley County Police Department of this flooding that did occur in Riley County and Manhattan, Kansas, with numerous buildings and roads inundated by the flash floods, including mudslides that blocked off various residents and shut down transportation in a number of locations, forcing the county to set up emergency evacuation centers to handle the people and animals that were displaced as a result of these severe floods. I'd just like to note that human-caused climate change loads the dice, as Dr. James Hansen would say, for extreme weather events. And in the present range of temperature increase between 1 and 2 degrees Celsius due to the ongoing effects of primarily fossil fuel burning and human-based carbon emissions, the atmosphere is now primed for more intense rainfall events and more intense storms due to increasing water vapor loads that increase the peak potential for the most severe storms. Unfortunately, if you keep burning fossil fuels, if you don't transition to clean energy, and if you don't cut carbon emissions, this trend of worsening extreme weather events and rigging the climate system, if you were, for extreme weather, then the situation gets worse. Now, what occurred in Kansas on September 3rd is that we had a persistent trough, a bit of a dip in the jet stream that has been firing off storms through the central U.S. persistently for multiple days now, for at least the past 2 to 3 weeks. And this system, which is associated with a stuck weather pattern, has resulted in floods, particularly in Wisconsin, causing the governor of Wisconsin to declare a state of emergency, as well as in other parts of the central United States, including Kansas. And this is a satellite shot from September 3rd, showing the cloud cover in the region, as well as the approach of tropical cyclone Gordon, which is in the process of adding more moisture to an otherwise very rich moisture flow. And looking at the GFS model, we can see the cloud cover for the day, as well as I've indicated the upper level wind pattern, so we can see the dip in the jet stream here near the central U.S. and in association with this persistent weather pattern, as well as very high levels of precipitable moisture that can really load up storms when they do fire, generating these extreme events. So it's worth noting that the event that hit Manhattan, Kansas is comparable to some of the other rain bomb type events that we have seen across the U.S. East over the past few years, including the back-to-back Ellicott City floods, in which severe rainfall generates very high amounts of rain over a short period of time, which trigger flash flooding. Now, it's worth noting that these stalled jet stream patterns do have a climate change fingerprint, in that polar amplification and more rapid warming of the pole and changing energy balance at the pole tends to result in a meandering jet stream and stuck weather patterns. And according to some research, particularly in Northern Hemisphere summer, which can lead into both extreme rainfall events persisting over locations for a long period of time, as well as extreme droughts and heat waves and associated wildfires in other zones where you see strong ridge patterns as opposed to trough patterns and high moisture loading. So there's a physical change to the Earth system that is ongoing due to the effects of higher heat, higher global heat, and changes in the atmosphere due to the heat trapping properties of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. So serious changes to the weather due to human-caused climate change. Now, it's worth noting that over the past week, we've seen between 4 and 10 to, in some cases, as high as 12 to 15 inches of rain over some regions across the central U.S. And this includes both impacts from Gordon as well as the very persistent rainfall pattern dominating the northern and central states of the United States. And it's worth noting that, unfortunately, as Gordon's moisture moves into the central U.S., which we are seeing now, I'm going to go ahead and just relocate to surface wind patterns so you can see the moisture. And you can see the swirl of Gordon here in the satellite shot becoming entangled with this trough. The potential for more severe rains is certainly there. So we've got a couple of minutes. I'd just like to go ahead and advance this satellite shot provided by NASA showing the swirl of Gordon overland, maintaining its characteristics as a tropical cyclone, even though it's weakened to less than tropical depression status or weaker at this time, still showing a circulative swirl, and the persistent trough over the central U.S. starting to become entangled. It's worth noting that the satellite shot for September 6th for today has not yet been updated. So, unfortunately, a persistent flood pattern for the central U.S., one that has some climate change fingerprints on it, and that appears to presently be getting a big moisture kick from Gordon. So, though we have seen very extreme, in some cases 1 in 500-year rainfall events from this persistent trough, it looks like there is more potential for flooding and heavy rains on the way. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be chatting with you soon.